Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road, where my guest today is Lemuel Vega. Lemuel has an amazing story of restoration, and God is using him mightily through his ministry, Christmas Behind Bars. Lemuel, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing what you're doing here, Mitch. We just say thank you for doing what you're doing, being faithful to the call of God.
Thank you. Your ministry is Christmas Behind Bars, and we're going to talk about that, but I want to get the story first.
Oh.
It's amazing. You were born in Bluffton, Indiana?
Yep.
And born into a Christian home?
Yep.
And then you moved to Chicago?
Yeah, moved to Chicago. I think my mom's work took her there, and my dad's education took him there, and we lived in the lower districts of Chicago and high-rise apartment buildings in kind of a rough neighborhood, Central Park.
And I think you remember the first time somebody stole something from you?
Man, I was robbed on Central Park before I was in first grade, you know?
What happened?
Well, mom said, don't ever leave from the apartment complex, and I just went down to meet my brother off the bus. I took my little toolbox, had a few nickels and things in it, and I went under the viaduct, wasn't supposed to leave. And this guy come over and says, you got any money in there? I said, well, I got a few nickels and balloons. And he said, well, give it to me. Someone's going to rob you. So I set it down, opened it up, gave it to him. He punched me in my stomach, took off running, So robbed before I'm in first grade, and it was just traumatic at home. And first grade went okay. And by the time I was in second grade, I was tied in my seat with a jump rope. My education wasn't well. I didn't get it. If it doesn't go well at home, education is not going to come good. Third grade, I was kicked out of a Christian school and a public school in the same year. And I just, I just kind of gave up on life. If you don't fit in somewhere, you don't fit in at home, you don't fit in at school, you just feel abandoned and forgotten, like you're worthless. And so my life was just miserable, Mitch.
Your mom had worked house cleaning jobs in order to put you in the Christian school.
Yeah.
What was the not fitting in and getting tied up by the jump rope? What do you think was going on there? Just kids being kids, or was
just
rough?
Education. If you don't get your homework done, you don't got it, so you just disconnect from school. And so it was just a messed up life. I mean, we were raised with a healthy nutritional background, and my mom's cleaning houses. We were poor, and so I started stealing 16-ounce bottles of Coca-Cola and frozen Twinkies. And, I'd run and hide under the porch to drink that and eat that. And so somehow I figured out as a young that food could make you feel good. So the sugar and the little caffeine as a little boy, I was like, wow. So somehow I got connected with that feeling of gratification. It was food, sugar, and so...
And then when did you start smoking?
I started smoking. I got caught, I think I was in third grade, got caught smoking cigarettes with a 7th grade girl, and I had to go to a stop smoking clinic. I told my mom, I said, well, I wasn't really smoking, but I'll go. And after the stop smoking clinic, the police were there to educate the parents or the people about drugs, and so they had these boards, what's an upper and what's a downer, and marijuana and all this kind of stuff, and speed. And so I listened I like interested in that, and I got all that. By the time I'm in 4th grade, whatever, I started drinking, and then I started meeting people, and I started hearing uppers and downers. And so my whole life transitioned, I guess, into a realm of negativity, older people, hanging out with older people, and you feel important because they're older and they want to teach you. And so life was just a real mess.
And I think you feel like alcohol's numbing the pain at the time too?
Yeah, the pain of life, not fitting in, and just, in 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, I couldn't do a sit-up because I was fat. I had glasses. I was 4 eyes. I was bullied by older kids in 5th, 6th grade. And so I hated school, didn't want to go. It was miserable. And you skip classes because you didn't get the work done. And so whole life was a mess.
When do you start dealing in drugs?
Probably, I don't know if it was 5th, 6th grade. I started realizing instead of just buying marijuana, you could get enough money to buy a quarter pound, then you could get enough money to buy a pound, then you could buy 5 pounds. And so drugs started to make money, and I thought that my mom's problems, because we were poor, I thought somehow money could fix life. At least my mom's situation. There were so many times we'd go to the grocery store, and Mom would have all these groceries on the counter, and when the amount reached a certain amount, she'd have to put the rest of the groceries back. And one day I pulled the money out of my pocket. I said, Mom, buy it all. She said, son, where'd you get the money? Just buy it all, Mom. I said I worked for it. And at that point, I just realized that money was I don't want to say God, money was my quest for fixing the problems of life.
And you got robbed as late in your teens. Was it in a drug buy or sale, or was it just
I had
random?
a home. I had told my dad. My dad actually told me to move out if I didn't want to live by the rules at home. Get out my way or the highway. I said, okay, I'll get out. So 16, 17, I got my own place. And so people would come through there buying drugs. And
Is this in Chicago?
yeah, in the Chicago area. We'd moved out to the suburbs by now. And so they'd come, and I started dealing with people that were robbing drugstores. So they're robbing, you know, the morphine and Demerol and all these bottles of liquid injectables. And so these people were serious, and I realized I was going to kill someone or I was going to get killed. And so I moved to a little country town in Bluffton, Indiana.
And you started carrying a gun at that time?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you come back to Bluffton, Indiana.
Yeah,
and
back to Grandma's farm, 80-acre farm there where I kind of grew up as a little child, or at least we spent my vacations there, Christmas vacation. And, you know, Mitch, I brought the same attitude from Illinois. Even though I had different people, I brought the same attitude. My brother and I were sitting in McDonald's smoking dope. McDonald's, I told my brother, this town ain't about nothing. I said, this ain't nothing. And it was a matter of 6 months probably, and I was sitting in the county jail facing 10 to 20 years in prison, a bond of $110,000. And at that point, your friends evaporate real quick. Mm-hmm. When you get in trouble, they gone. They say they got your back. They say they'll be there for you. And, you know, there I'm sitting in the county jail. I was a trustee. We'd stole all the dope off of the evidence board, because when I'd go out for a phone call, they had evidence board with actually drugs on it to show school tours and parents what this stuff was. And we set the jail on fire in Wells County back in 78, 79, and we set the jail on fire.
As being from the inside?
From the inside.
Okay, I'm just
it's crazy. I mean, there's holes rusted up by the shower. You could see the beams, and I told my brother, I said, man, we could set this thing on fire. And so we stuffed it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and so I told someone, I said, hey, go light it, man, go light it. So they went up and they lit it. We heard the popping and crackling, and we about all died that night. You know, the sheriff said had he not went out, normally on Sunday afternoons, he goes out for lunch after church. He said had he went out that weekend, he said we all would have died. Smoke filled the jail, they called. So anyway, long story short, the sheriff, after we've done all them things, we were very, very bad inmates, and after we'd done all them things to his jail, he allowed 6 or 7 people to come to the jail. And those people came, they didn't tell us about Jesus, they didn't tell us they'd been in prison, they didn't give us a Bible, they didn't tell if we didn't change our ways, we'd go into hell. They came to sing some songs to us. They wouldn't have been allowed in if the sheriff's heart hadn't been touched. And so they came, and they didn't tell us anything really about the gospel, but through the love of their coming, their volunteering, their time to sing some songs of hope to us, I had tears in my eyes, and it's forever been etched on my heart, the value of people coming at a time like that in their life. Now, I went to prison. I OD'd. I bought an attorney out of Indianapolis. I had money. Again, I thought money could buy, and I had the best.
And you're young. How old are you?
I was 18 now, looking at 10 to 20 years in prison. Paid him $5,000. And I got more time in prison than what my brother got with the public defender. Long hair, hold the blue jeans, don't give a care attitude. I got more time in prison. I actually OD'd on my way to prison. I left the county jail. I took all the drugs I could get, saved up before I went to prison. And I almost OD'd at the Reception Diagnostic Center in Plainfield before I was sent off to prison.
You hired that attorney because he was famous for getting somebody off on an insanity plea?
I was actually in Chicago, and it was one evening I saw this guy. He wired a shotgun to a bank president's head in Indianapolis, Indiana on a cold, icy winter day. He walked the bank president out of the bank, put him in his car, and the police were standing around, didn't do anything to him, couldn't because of the shotgun. And here he got him off on temporary insanity. I said, man, that's the attorney I want. Well, lo and behold, it didn't work.
Talk about your grandmother and what her spirit was like, and when you had that precious time with her before this occurred.
Before first grade, I mean, grandmother, we'd have worship in the mornings. We'd have prayer before we'd eat. They would sing a few songs and have prayer before we'd go to sleep at night. And grandmother had set a tone for our lives that God was the answer to life's problems. You know, I was lost in a cornfield once at grandmother's house, and we're lost. We'd played all day, and we're tired. We want to go home. We're done. And we couldn't find our way out, no matter which way we went in this 80-acre field. And my brother and I kneeled down and prayed. He was 1 year older than I was, and I said, dear Jesus, please help us to find our way out. And the next way we went. And God is just so miraculous as he works in our lives. So Grandma set the tone for Christ. Mother set the tone for Christ, even though she worked 15 hours a day, 2 jobs, you know, to keep us in clothes and food. And so they set the tone for our lives. And the Bible speaks about train up a child in the way he should go. So at least there's seeds sown.
Yeah.
And I want to tell the mothers and the dads and the grandmas right now that you're praying for Johnny, you're praying for Sarah, you're praying for that grandbaby. Keep praying and do what you can. Because at 13 years old, I remember coming in the house and I would be late. My mom would be kneeling by her bed with her Bible open, claiming God's promises. And I'd look in her room and I'd say, Mom, give it a break. Give it a break, Mom. And I'd go up to my room, get a little higher because I didn't want anything to do with that. And so parents and grandparents, pastors, people, neighbors can set the influence, the tone for that young person's life where they are.
Even if they are rebelling at the time. Talk about your encounters with the Gideons.
The Gideons would come in every Sunday morning. They'd come in and they'd knock on the cells and, do you want to come? Do you want to come? And 2 or 3 would go out of the jail and go sit at the picnic table. You know, Mitch, I never went to sit with them, but I'd stand by my cell and I would always listen to what they had to say. And I've thanked the Gideons time and time again for the hope that they brought, and they continue to do so through Bibles and volunteering their time.
So you're 18 years old, you're in a maximum security prison. How much time are you looking at?
I ended up getting 8 years, so that means you have to do 4 mandatory. And going in the back gates of that maximum security prison, the first words that I heard from another inmate were going through A&O, that's where you get all your clothes, your shoes, and this inmate's in the back of the kitchen, and he's sweeping. He says, hey, man, I'll give you a shank for that watch. I had a real nice watch. I had a nice gold necklace, you know, I'm going off to prison, you know, and I said, what'd you say? He said, I'll give you a shank for that watch. I was like, man. And I got to see my brother. My brother went to prison about 6 months before I did, and I got to see my brother a few hours later in the chow hall. I hurried up and gave him my watch and gave him my necklace. I said, here, bro, hold this, you know, because it's rough. Prison is rough, but prison is also what you make it. So if you want to be tough and borrow and beg and steal and play games, that's 99% of the problems in prison is the folk playing games. You know, there's people that come to prison and they share the gospel. And I went to a church service one day at the prison at the Indiana Reformatory, and I don't remember what the preacher preached. I don't remember what the preacher prayed. I don't remember the songs that were sung. But Mitch, I remember bowing my head in the 3rd row from the back, 3rd seat in, and I prayed, and I said, dear Jesus, I said, if ever you can use me, I want to be used by you.
Would you say that was your moment of salvation?
That was a beginning point in my life because I couldn't get my GED in prison. I'd failed all my life. And so that point in my life, it was just telling God that, hey, I'm willing if you can use me. And so he continues to work with all of us. So that was a beginning point in my life. And then I got out of prison and
talk about the peanuts first. I thought that was fascinating.
After that church service, there was a 20-pound box of peanuts. I think they come in 20-pound boxes. They're roasted, salted, and they're really, really good. And the church group had brought in this box of peanuts. Never before had I seen them before, never had I seen them after that. And you know, I grabbed a pocket full of peanuts and I filled my old brown state coat full of peanuts and I'm eating them all the way back to the cell house and throwing the shells on the ground. I said, man, these are bomb. These are great. I love peanuts. They're double roasted, extra salted. And I got back to my cell and I took the remaining peanuts that I had out of my pocket, Mitch, and I put them in my locker. And every day I would open my locker and sit there and take out a peanut, 1 peanut. Each peanut comes with 2 peanuts in there, and each peanut is in half. And I'd sit there on my bunk and I'd eat those peanuts. Again, that was a moment in my life of something that you didn't have from the outside. It was something that I appreciated, just like them young people coming in to sing some songs. And so I appreciated them peanuts. Prison doesn't change one's life. It doesn't have the capacity to change one's life. If doctors could help us with psychological medications and alcoholic problems and gambling problems, if prison could make the person good, then we wouldn't need Jesus. So prisons don't do it. They can't. The prisons can be a deterrent to save society from these people, but these people are in a place in time in their life where they want change. They're not satisfied with where their best efforts have gotten them. They want change. They want to be different. And I guarantee you that was my life because I was in the county jail facing 10 to 20 years in prison. I wanted to reach out to the 13-year-olds. I wish somehow I could talk to the 13-year-olds to say, look, man, that's not it. The money ain't going to get it. The shoes and the gold and the watches ain't going to get it. It don't matter how much money you got. You still empty inside at the end of the day. And so got out of prison. And I got out of prison with a Lemuel self-improvement plan. Don't use drugs. Don't drink. Be good. Go to church. Get a job. Try to do what's right. Get your license. And so I tried to do all those things. And brother, it was only a matter of months. And I took my focus off of what bit I knew of Christ. And I was looking at all the Joneses, all the jet skis and the boats and the motorcycles and ski nautiques and all this stuff that people had. They had nice clothes. And so I took my focus off of the direction that I wanted to go. And I began taking drugs back to the prison. And my friends would sell the drugs in prison, and then the money would come my way. And so the boats and convertibles and cars and all that stuff began to come. But I was so hopeless, so empty, so broken, and I was sick and ready to die. I was going back to prison. I was suicidal, or I was going to die. And one day I went to treatment. I went to this place called Park Center. I pulled into this place, and I said, look, I'm really, really sick, and I need to talk to somebody. The lady had slid the window back, and I told her that. She said, we charge $75 an hour. And I said, I don't have $75. And I walked out.
You were married?
Yeah, I was married. I got married about a year after I got out of prison.
And
struggling with addiction.
And you're spending everything that you're earning and dealing on
it's
using.
All gone, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens?
I went for treatment, and I OD'd in treatment, Mitch. I went to treatment for the first time in my life, and I walked in there, and I took all these pills. I didn't take them to get high. I took them because I was scared. I didn't know anybody that wanted to quit using drugs. I'd never met anybody in my whole life that had ever been through treatment. So when I went to treatment, I took all these sleeping pills, just the same reason when I went to prison, I OD'd on drugs because I was scared. I didn't know what tomorrow was going to bring. So I went to treatment. Do they inject you with Thorazine? Do they put you in a rubber room? Do they strap you to a bed? I didn't know. And so the doctor kicked me out for noncompliance. I OD'd, they found me, they revived me.
Kicked you out of treatment.
Kicked me out of treatment.
So they revive you and...
The doctor never come around and said, look, man, what were you thinking? I just said, look, I'm scared because I don't know what it's like. No one even come and connected with me at that point in my life. And then I run wild for another 3-4 months, and then I went to a place called Charter Beacon Hospital. I heard that's a good hospital, so I packed all my stuff, and I had my wife take me to Charter Beacon Hospital 10 o'clock at night, and I'm doing drugs, driving all over town. She said, are you ready yet? I said, no, 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 no. Finally, she pulled in the parking lot. I threw my drugs in the parking lot, and I walked up to the place, and the man that came out to meet me, his name was Jerry. The man that came out to meet me, I said, look, man, you don't understand. I said, I've been in prison and my life. He said, me too. I said, what prison? He said, Pendleton. I said, me too. I said, what cell house? He said, H cell house. I said, me too. And he had 6 years clean, and so that gave me a beacon of hope. And I took all these pills out of my pocket. I said, look, man, these were the pills I took to numb the scare of what's going to happen. I said, look, I don't want these. He said, I don't want them either. He said, flush them down the toilet. So I flushed them down the toilet. I went back onto the treatment ward with a bit of hope that this man had 6 years clean, the first person I met, first person had been in prison, the first person. And I walked back on the unit. You know what I heard at 2 o'clock in the morning? This boy come up to me and he goes, psst, psst. He said, you got any rocks on you? I said, get away from me, dude. And I was in treatment. The next morning, the doctor come in and the doctor said, what are you doing here? And I said, I'm really, really sick and my life is a mess. And here it's the same doctor that I had across town at another hospital 3 months before. And I knew in this place there was probably no hope for me because antabuse never works. Methadone helped the heroin addict. And so I felt so hopeless, so alone. My dope in the parking lot, my mind was all fogged, but yet I had an inner desire for change in my life. But there I felt hopeless. I went to one program in that 2 days that I was in that hospital, and it's called a music program. 15 or 16 of them sitting around the room. And here's what the lady said, brother, and I know you'll agree with me. She said, when you all feel like using drugs, you need to go home, put on some headphones and listen to some easy listening music, and that will calm you. Give me a break, woman. You don't know what you're talking about, because when thought comes in, action is already happening. When you got a tax check coming, you know you got money coming, you're already thinking about this here. When someone thinking about robbing someone, you already start making a plan. So we ain't going to go home and listen to some easy listening music. That don't work. I went in my hospital room, I pushed my bed up against the door, and I was in the valley of decision. Do I want to try or not try? Well, all my life says no. 35 years you've tried. You've always failed. So why would you try again? And there was a knock on my door. And I wasn't so very nice because, see, they'd been talking about taking my clothes. When you go to treatment, you got to wear slippers and a gown for the first week. And they were talking about taking my clothes, and I'd went in and put on all the shirts I had, all the socks I had, and I thought they was coming in to take my clothes. But it was a pastor that came to have prayer with me.
This was in the first 48 hours of you being there?
He come in to have prayer with me. I don't remember what he prayed, but he told me, he said, I'm going to tell you something I've never told anybody before in my life. Never been in prison. He wasn't born on the wrong side of the tracks like I felt that I was. He said, when my mother died, he said, I got addicted to cough syrup. And I'm thinking, oh, dude, you don't have a clue what I'm dealing with, but go ahead. You know, I was respectful and kind. And he said the Lord helped him with that problem. And he prayed, and I don't remember what his prayer was, but he left, and the bed went back up against the door, and it was a cold November evening, and I had a picture window to the west, and I saw the most beautiful sunset that I'd ever seen in my life, and a thought came to me, because I heard it in third grade, that there's no two snowflakes ever created the same. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I never was in a school with a microscope, but that thought came to me. I'm all dysfunctional and confused, and as I saw that most magnificent, beautiful sunset, I said, man, if God can paint that, somehow God can help me. And I kneeled down in my hospital room, and my only prayer, a few simple words, was, dear Jesus, please help me. I want to quit, but I can't. And so God's timing, he'll come through nature, people, peanuts, singers, Restoration Road. That's what this program's all about.
Amen. So you ask God for a job. You get out of the treatment center?
Yeah, I was out for about a few weeks and months, and I hurt so bad, and it was awful, but I was getting better, I was getting stronger, and I didn't want the factory environment no more, the drugs, the music, the alcohol, and so I prayed and I asked God for a job, and so God blessed me with a job, an old rusty van, and I started selling groceries, produce, door to door to the Amish people, and now I'm selling potatoes, and you know what? When you're selling 50-pound bags of potatoes, you ain't got to worry about as long as you didn't steal them. So I'm out selling potatoes and apples and oranges.
You already had the entrepreneurial spirit. Now it's illegal.
Yeah,
activity.
Twinkies and snacks and candy bars. And it was the pastor's wife's idea about making gift packages for folk in the county jail. So I got out in November, so it went December, January, February, all the way to like September, October, and so the idea came to make packages for the folk in the county jail. I said, that would be phenomenal. Can we get some people to come and sing too? Because I remember the people that come and sing. And so that's how the ministry started, with one jail in Grant County, central Indiana, of 350 packages. And Mitch, let me tell you how cool God is. We took the packages, they were passed through a food slot this big, no window in the door, and so they were passed through. They'd tell 28 people to line up, they'd drop the food slot, throw in packages. I was on my knees at the next food slot, and I would tell them, I said, come here. I said, I have 1 year clean, there's hope. Christ is the answer, don't give up. We love you guys, we appreciate you. When the volunteers would come to pass them out, I'd go to the next food slot. I'm on my knees at that food slot, and I thought, man, if you make them packages a little bigger, they don't fit through that food slot, I bet they'll open the door. So I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell the church. I didn't tell my wife. The next year we come to the jail, the packages were bigger, and they opened the food slot. They tried the stuff. They said they won't fit. They had a little committee meeting. Now they opened the door. Now we got to talk to them, folk. And here's what the chaplain said. He said, if you keep them small enough, they'll fit through this place in the catwalk. He said, that'll be okay. He said, do you hear me? I said, yes, sir, I sure do. And the next year we made the packages bigger, and now they opened the door, and we got to go in and talk to them for 5, 10, 15 minutes about Jesus.
Oh, my goodness.
That's phenomenal. So God, it was not my idea, but it was God's design, and that's what he'll do with each and every one of us. As we're willing, he's able. What I promised the inmates is Jonah was called by God. Jonah, you and I got a free will. Jonah chose to run from God. Jonah did something. He confessed on the boat, look, it's my fault. Jonah surrendered. He said, look, throw me over. So Jonah was willing, he confessed, throw me over. At that point, God helped Jonah. And perhaps these jails and prisons are the Jonah experience, the whale experience for these people that are incarcerated. And Jonah did something. Jonah cried out to God because of his situation. Jonah didn't say a sinner's prayer. Jonah cried out to God because of his situation, his location perhaps, and that's what we want to promise these men and women. Please, we want to encourage them through something. It might be ramen noodles, it might be a book, it might be a song, it might be because we've been where you was. There's hope for your life through Christ.
Amen. What's next for you? You're in a ton of prisons, by the way, right? I mean, just all over the East and as far west.
It's amazing. God worked it out. Buddy Mac Williams was at the Indiana Reformatory in Pendleton. He's selling drugs from prison on the street. Okay, Buddy Mac Williams got caught, so He hired an attorney for $30,000. So when you're in prison, $30,000 is a lot of money. And so he bought the best attorney he could find. He got 20 years added to his sentence. They snatched him up out of Indiana. They did an interstate compact, and they sent him to Virginia. In Virginia, they sent him to Wallens Ridge, where there's life, double life, life plus 80. And these inmates started telling Buddy about Jesus. Buddy said, I already know about Jesus. I've been running from Jesus. So all these people started telling him about Jesus. Buddy surrendered his life to Christ in a supermax prison in Virginia. Buddy did the rest, a lot of his time there. He was transferred back to Indiana. When he come back to Miami Correctional Facility, all the inmates said, Buddy's back, Buddy's back. They were selling drugs in prison, out of prison. And Buddy said, no, that's the old me. This is the new me. Buddy got out of prison and he called me. He said, Vega, you know what? I hear you bringing these big bags to my jail at Wabash, Indiana, where I'm a volunteer chaplain. I just bring little bags. You're bringing big bags. He said, I'd like to go with you sometime. So we're down at the Newcastle Correctional Facility, 3,500 inmates, and Buddy's asking me, he said, do you think we can ever go to Virginia? I'm like, Buddy, we're focused on this, 3,000. I said, why don't you check it out? Next thing, I got a call from Dr. Che, central office in Virginia. He said, I like this program. He said, I've approved this program for every inmate in the state of Virginia. And I said, sir, how many inmates you got? He said, 30,000. We'd only been doing up to maybe 10, 12, 15,000 a year at that point. And I swallowed real hard, and I said, sir, we'll do half of them. He said, we're going to start at the work camps and work our way up, 15,000. I said, oh, no, sir, we want to start at the supermax and work our way down, because I know Buddy wanted to go back. So Buddy was privileged to go back to every prison that he had been in Virginia. And them folk remembered him. They said, Indiana's back, Indiana's back. So now God used Buddy's experience in Virginia. He paid his attorney how much? $30,000 from prison. 30,000 inmates in the state of Virginia received a little gift package from Christmas Behind Bars. And they can check our website, christmasbehindbars.org, christmasbehindbars.com. The ministry has continued to grow for 20 plus years. Since I got out of Charter Beacon Hospital, 1 year later, 1 county jail, then 2, then 5, then 10. It's no longer a seasonal outreach ministry. But the plan, and some people tell me, they say, well, Christmas, why would you do it at Christmas? Well, Christmas is the loneliest time of one's incarceration, because if ever they had any happy moment at grandma's, mommy's, daddy's, any place in the world, somehow Christmas, the officers are happy for Christmas. They're doing plans for Christmas, and here the inmates are with nothing and nobody, seemingly forgotten by society. But you and I know they've not been forgotten by God.
Amen.
So,
Lemuel, thank you so much for sharing your story and your ministry with us. It's so big now, you need to buy a warehouse.
we do need a warehouse.
I think God's vision will be followed by God's provision on that one. Blessings to you and your ministry. Thank you so much.
As you know, my dad wrote a book called Street Smarts from Proverbs. And if you're a college student or a young adult, he wrote it with you in mind. Whether you're going through a crossroads and making a decision about your career or any other life choice, this book can be helpful in making those choices with wisdom.
Hi, I'm Mitch. Join my good friend Lynn Ford and me. We're back together again next week on the Restoration Road.